going on, guys? I didn't think to film this before I started this turbo rebuild. But in case anyone is curious to what disassembled Nissan R35 GTR turbo looks like, this is what it looks like. So these are some of the new components, and those are some of the old components. I accidentally tossed the journal bearings before I got them on film, because I originally didn't think I was going to film this, but what this is an R35 GTR FP Green. So it's a factory turbocharger modified by Force Performance into the green spec. It's got the billet compressor wheel, larger diameter. I don't recall the size off the top of my head, but you got their turbine wheel as well. And this is all made to fit to. Oh, wow. Excuse me for not being able to talk, but this is made to fit the factory bearing housing. The compressor cover has been machined on both ends to accept the larger wheel. Kind of an odd setup, but a lot of the turbocharged vehicles have the turbine housing part of the exhaust manifold, so that has been machined to fit the larger turbine wheel as well. So I've already rebuilt one of the turbos. I'm rebuilding this other turbo because obviously it's a twin turbo vehicle. So yeah, the FP Green in general for the GTR is a very capable combination. You know, you can do some very interesting stuff. Put down a lot of power on the 85 especially. And they spool very quick. Not much later than stock. And if anyone's driven a well-sorted GTR, you know, say even, you know, basic intake exhaust tune on E85 on stock twins, it moves. So this is like stock turbos on roids, basically. Definitely a nice little upgrade. Sort of spendy, but you know, GTRs aren't cheap to modify or to own. So it's for the guys with the big pockets. But anyway, well, actually I still do have the journal bearings. So you could tell where, maybe you can't, I don't know. There's some scoring on the journal bearings. These are worn out. This happens a lot with contamination. Like I don't know, you should be able to see that deep groove. So normally if you're not running the inline oil filter to filter all the bigger particles, it'll get into those journal bearings, and there's not a lot of clearance between those and the turbine housing, and most likely you'll damage that, and then over time it'll develop shaft play, and then if you catch it in time, it's just a simple rebuild like this one. Other times you might trash the turbine housing, the bearing housing, the compressor housing, or just the whole turbo in general. So always stay on top of, you know, checking your oil. When you install these turbos, make sure that there is no debris in the oil lines. You know, don't be careless installing the banjo bolts. Keep your hands clean. Make sure that there's not even a single speck of dirt or anything like that, because as little as it may seem, it will damage the compressor housing and the bearing housing and the journal bearings themselves. If you're lucky, because the journal bearings are softer, they'll take the majority of the abuse, and they're fairly inexpensive to replace. So yeah, just keep everything clean if you're doing your own install, and hopefully if you're paying someone, they do a good job of keeping things clean. Now this kit, I've had several Force Performance turbos apart before, and I am surprised that they had the factory sintered bronze style thrust bearing, which is good for lubricity, you know, but not very good at taking thrust loads. So, you know, if you have FP Greens, you're not running the low boost. I mean, I'm assuming. I don't see why you'd want to upgrade your turbos in the first place if you're not going to run them hard. So I am upgrading this to a billet thrust bearing. So hopefully that'll help hold up a little bit better for running higher boost. And I guess I'll film this once it's together. You don't necessarily have to get this rebalanced if you mark it before you take it apart. You could see, maybe you can, maybe you can't, but I notched the compressor wheel, the top of the shaft, and the nut, so that when you assemble this, it will retain its balance. Replacing the journal bearings really isn't gonna affect the balance. Now, if this was a ball bearing turbo, you definitely want to get it rebalanced, even if you're replacing just the ball bearing, because it rotates with the turbine wheel. So it is a rotating component that is part of the rotating assembly. So you want to balance it as an assembly. But journal bearing turbos, ideally, if you're not replacing the compressor wheel or the turbine wheel, mark everything before you take it apart and then line it back up, and you should be good to go. So yeah, I'm gonna put this together, and I'll continue filming once it's together. And once I have them both, well, one's already done, but once I have this one completely together, I have to coat the hot side, the manifold / turbine housing, plus the compressor cover. Once I got that done, I will get it on video. That's all I got for now. Okay, so there it is, assembled. Bearing cartridge. Spins freely. No in and out. Ready for the compressor housing to be installed and the turbine housing, but I need to clean that up and coat both of them. But that is what the assembled cartridge looks like. Cool. Well, I have both of these rebuilt and assembled, cleaned up, as you can tell. So that's what these are. FP Greens for an R35 GTR, Nissan GTR. Yeah, I did the rebuild on these for someone that found out that I can rebuild turbos. These are journal bearing turbos. The parts can be hard to get if you don't know where to look, but I know where to find the rebuild parts for these, and I don't have a problem with taking these apart and assembling them correctly. These are not my first turbo rebuild. I've been rebuilding turbos here and there for, I don't know, for a long time. But anyway, a little bit about the FP Greens. They're very capable on the R35 platform, especially if you introduce some E85. These are, you know, they're fairly popular, a little bit spendy, but I mean, if you have an R35 GTR, you have money, or at least I'd like to think so. So, you know, north of 800 at the wheels is possible with E85. I believe the pair here is capable of flowing over 80 pounds a minute. So, yeah, and they don't spool much later than stock. So, you know, they spool pretty quick, put down a lot of power. Very convenient because you get your induction like stock. You know, it's really a true bolt-on, so really easy to install. Use your factory oil and coolant lines, and these are the factory style. Well, I mean, they actually are factory exhaust manifolds / turbine housings that have been machined to fit the larger wheels. And yeah, so that's all I got for the FP Greens. I don't have any videos or pictures of the before, but they're fairly clean for what they were. I believe they had some miles on them, and it was just time to freshen them up, rebuild, you know, upgrade the thrust bearings to billet ones. There was no damage to anything. It just needed a basic journal bearing rebuild. So that is done. And of course, I coated the manifold / turbine housings and the compressor covers. So hopefully the green kind of fits the FP green, which was sort of why I chose that color. I don't think the owner cared, but I did it anyway. And then coated the ceramic coated the exhaust manifold / turbine housings. Cleaned up the casting on the inside. Can't really tell very well. Garage lighting kind of sucks. But yeah, that's them. Anyway, take care.